And now, please join me in welcoming Dror, CEO of Israel Innovation Authority. Today, Dror will give us an insightful overview of Israel's high-tech industry, highlighting the investments in health tech and outline the future steps for enhancing the sector, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to see such a full house of professionals during this time, and especially in Jerusalem. I'm very happy to be here. I want to take the opportunity to thank our partners today and in general, IATI, Karin, Yaakov. Well done for this successful event. In my presentation, I would like to share with you a little bit about the overall situation of the Israeli high-tech sector during these turbulent times, but to be more specific and talk also about the health tech sector. So I guess many of you already seen the numbers of how important is the high-tech sector for the Israeli economy. But every time I put this slide on the board, I think it's quite astonishing to see the numbers. First of all, more than 6% of Israeli GDP is reinvested in research and development. This is the highest number in the world. It's more than twice the average of the OECD countries, and a very unique number. About 12% of the Israeli workforce works in the high-tech sector. This is, again, #1 in the world. Those 12% pay 30% of income tax, so you can understand the compensation is quite good. They produce 18% of Israeli GDP. As a benchmark, in the US, high-tech sector contributes about 8 to 9% of GDP. In the EU, it's about 4 to 5%, so this is, again, #1 in the world. And about 50% of Israeli export is based on products and services which are based on technology. So this is the high-tech sector in general. For our guests from abroad, just to introduce the Innovation Authority, we are a government agency who is responsible for the high-tech sector in Israel. Our mission in life is to sustain and improve the competitiveness of the Israeli tech sector, tech hub. You know that today there are many rising tech hubs in the world. All of them basically compete for the same resources, venture funds which flow very quickly from one place to the other, searching for the best ventures, entrepreneurs who are looking and doing shopping where to open their startups, tech workers that can get a visa very easily almost anywhere today in the world. So Israel is ranked very high, somewhere in the top 3 or top 5 tech hubs in the world, and our job is to make sure we remain there. The way we fulfill this mission is in 3 ways. First of all, investment in startups and growth companies which develop disruptive innovation with a very high risk profile. I want to emphasize high risk because then the private sector is not investing or under-investing, and this is why we put our money in order to de-risk those ventures and make sure that the private sector the private investors can also participate. The second way is by investing in the infrastructure, technology infrastructure of the country for emerging technologies, building the labs, investing in applied research, developing the talent, just to name a few national plans, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, bioconvergence. In all of those, we invest in order to make sure that once in few years, when those technologies are mature and entrepreneurs would like to establish their ventures, they will find everything they need locally and open their startups here. The third way is by removing of growth barriers. Since we are in daily contact, absolutely on a daily contact with most of the tech companies in Israel, about 9,000, just as a reference, We are very quick to identify growth barriers, whether regulation, taxation, or what have you. And then we reach out to the relevant ministry or agency or even to the academia and to the industry in order to work out the removal of this barrier so the tech sector can fulfill its utmost potential. So this is us. Let's talk about what happened here since middle of 22. So you can see here on this slide the numbers of private investments in tech companies, early stage or early growth companies, private only, not public market. You can see the numbers up to 21, and then what happened in the phenomenal years of 21 and half of 22. If before that we were used to something like $5 to $6 billion over a year, then during 21 and 22, it was 5 to 6 billions per quarter. So really phenomenal years. But this did not go for a long time, and you can see what happened since 22. Middle of 22, we are back to the levels of 2018, 2019. Well, it started out globally with the inflation going up and interest rates going up as well. The appetite of investors to do early stage investments went down. And then with the political instability, which started out in Israel in early 23, and then obviously October 7th, and you can see the picture of how sharp was the decline. About 55% decline between 22 and 23. And for those of you who have already seen the new report published by IATI about the biomed sector, you have seen that the decline there was only 40%. So meaning biomed sector did better than the rest of the high-tech sector. During 2023, we continued, the Innovation Authority continued to invest in those high-risk places where the private sector is under-investing, at least to our view. And you can see here a comparison per different sectors in the high-tech between what was the percentage of the money, the private money that was invested in this sector, and what was the percentage of our public money that was invested in this sector. I will point out those that are related to health tech. You can see that the private sector investments in health tech were about 16% of the overall investments, while the Innovation Authority invested 35% of its money in health tech ventures. And this is because we believe that this is where the great innovation is going to happen in the next decades. The speakers before me spoke about the need to find technologies that will help humanity get good healthcare services in a decent price point, and only technology is the key to that. And this is why we see so many inventions and ventures that are tackling those challenges here in Israel, and we continue to boldly invest in those ventures. After October 7th, we very quickly realized that many early-stage companies were caught in the middle of a financing round. Many investors kind of froze. They were saying, let's wait and see how things evolve before we put in our money. And we realized that more than 50% of the early-stage startups in Israel are in a situation that they have less than 6 months of paying salaries, what is called runways. And this is obviously a situation we could not agree to. If you will, the early-stage startups are the most important asset of the startup nation, and we cannot afford seeing hundreds of such good startups being closed just because of the war situation. And this is why we declared an emergency bridging fund, which we call the Fast Check Fund of $100 million. Just to extend the runways of good early-stage startups. We are more or less ending these days the allocation of those $100 million. This money also requires matching of the private sector, and all in all, we are looking about an injection of $250 million into early-stage, excellent early-stage ventures in Israel. And what do you think is the percentage of health tech ventures? Well, surprisingly enough, 35%. So the same ratio as the rest of the investments during the year, and this is only by coincidence because every company went through a due diligence process and we selected the best companies, and yet 35% out of them were health tech. But that was only first aid. Obviously, just extending runways is not a way to get stronger out of this crisis. You know that Israel in general and Israeli tech went through many downturns in the last few decades, whether it was global economics or local security issues in Lebanon, in Gaza, or even COVID-19. The common denominator for all these crises was that Israeli tech always rose stronger from those cases. And we believe that also from these times we will rise stronger. But just to look at the back mirror and hope for the best is not a plan, right? This is not something we can count on, and this is why these days we are launching a few strategic moves that aim to do exactly that, to ensure that the business environment for tech companies in Israel is optimal, to make sure that after the war this sector will become even stronger than before, and by that also the entire Israeli economy will become stronger. I will not get into all the details. I just mentioned two strategic moves. One is launching of Yozma Fund. For those of you in the audience that remember the first Yozma Fund that was launched in the 90s, which basically created the entire venture fund community in Israel. Well, in early April, we are going to launch Yozma 2 in order to stimulate Israeli institutional investors to invest in Israeli venture funds, to make sure that there is enough money for early stage investments in Israel. And this Yozma fund will include a special incentive for deep tech venture funds, deep tech including obviously health tech, biomed, and so forth. The second move, deep tech startup fund, we are going to completely change the way we select in which startups to invest and how we synchronize with the private sector. Again, I will not be able to go through all the details, but basically we are going to refunnel lots of our resources into deep tech ventures, deep tech again, including health tech and biomed, and give a very high percentage of investment of every round. You can look here at the different rounds, whether you are still in the ideation phase, pre-seed, seed, and A. We are going to take a pretty large share of the cycle, of the phase, and de-risk it for the private investors. Again, we are trying to create the optimal deep tech funding environment for you to make sure that researchers and entrepreneurs and investors that want to go in this direction will understand that Israel is the best way for them, the best place for them to innovate and create their ventures. Is that enough? No. We continue to do things that we did before the war. I just mentioned quickly the Bioconvergence National Program, this meeting point of biology and technology, which is now being proliferated by artificial intelligence. I will not go into all the details, but we keep on investing in this $500 million national program of excellence in research for bioconvergence, developing the human capital, having biologists together, sitting together with engineers and programmers and creating solutions for the benefit of mankind, enabling regulation. Noah before me mentioned this. This is one of the barriers that we are tackling together, all the members of the government, to make sure that Israel can also be innovative in this perspective, progressive regulation, cross disciplines, R&D, and establishing labs which are also multidisciplinary here in Israel. Again, because of lack of time, I will not go into all the details. You can follow all the publications. Those investments over the last 2 or 3 years are creating a great momentum in the local ecosystem. We saw in 23 a growth of 40% in the number of companies in Israel which are using bioconvergence in their products and services. You can see here companies around or over 100 companies in the health tech sector, food tech sector, ag tech, and also environment, which are using biology and technology together in order to innovate and disrupt and tackle challenges humanity is facing. So just to conclude with our vision, we hope to see, and we are working on that, and you are working on that, all the researchers and the entrepreneurs and the investors working on creating Israel as the health tech innovation hub, which is based on bioconvergence technologies, which is working for humanity's better health and quality of life. So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.